everybody. Finally, right? Finally, we're here. Sorry for the delay. It's been a day. It's been a day. So you have to bear with your brown girl Bella for a moment. But I promise you, this conversation is going to be so good that you are going to forgive me instantly for being tardy to the party. You really, really are. I am trying for the first time these magnetic eyelashes because a bunch of you have told me, oh, try it and see. I want to know a review. And so I'm trying it. And I'm gonna let you know right now. I don't know about these. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about them yet. Let's share us out before we start. So let's do that. Hang on just one moment. Let me make sure everything is everything. So let's do that. Hang on just one. All right, we took care of that feedback. Thank you for those who are in the chat. I'm just going to share us out to let everybody know we are now live. Okay. All right. So I have the pleasure right now to introduce Brea Baker. And I'm going to just talk a little bit about her. But this is one that from the moment I met her, she just like really captured my heart. And she's like my little sister and little baby that I wish I had, but didn't. But she's the closest thing to it. So we're going to go with it. Brea Baker is a writer and a freedom fighter who has been working on the front lines for almost a decade. First as a student activist and now as a national and global strategist. In that time, she has, all right, Brooklyn, we ain't trying to feel you right now. We know you in the house. Be quiet. That's Brooklyn, the Maltese. You all know. In that time, she has contributed to dozens of electoral and advocacy campaigns, including the 2017 Women's March, where she served as the youngest national organizer, the 2018 student walkouts against gun violence, Jumanji Williams' successful bid for the New York City Public Advocate, and more. Among her many hats, a core part of Brea's work has been advising influencers, advocacy organizations, and media companies on building people power towards a more liberated world. She has a BA in political science from Yale University. I'll say that again, from Yale University, where she held internships with the U.S. Department of State, the Public Defender's Service in D.C., and served as president of the Yale's NAACP chapter. Her work in coalition with other advocates and organizers, Brea has been recognized as a 2017 Glamour Woman of the Year and 2019 ID Up and Rising. She is also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, Xi Omicron chapter, City chapter in New Haven, Connecticut. Without further preamble, let me introduce to the stage Miss Brea Baker. Hey.
Thank you so much, Soror. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Hi again, my little sis.
How are you? I know we were just kicking us backstage, but I'm so glad to be here.
Yes. So tell us, I mean, your resume is just incredible. To be so young and have done so much, I feel like I am a total slacker. have not done as much in my world as you have done in yours.
Please, please.
But
You know that you are doing the work and connecting the community in your own dope ways.
I try. But take us back to young Brea. Like, what amazing work your parents have done to make this human. But tell us how you grew up. Where did you grow up? And how did you get started on your journey?
I grew up in Long Island, New York. I wouldn't say that I started activism like as a child. It wasn't necessarily like, oh, my parents were political and that made me political. I grew up in the Black church, so inherently, you know, being a Black child was political in some senses of the word, but I also grew up in a very diverse community. Mm-hmm. So I really felt like at that time, I was in a post-racial America. I just felt like the people around me were Black. We all were on the same economic footing. I wasn't truly aware of that separation that had happened. And as I got older, I think a few things were happening around the same time. One, I was graduating high school when Trayvon Martin was killed. And so that was a very big influence on me. And the subsequent trial of George Zimmerman and seeing him get acquitted was a big impact on me. Mm-hmm. Then I'm going to Yale University, which felt in many ways like a dream come true. And then I get there and it's like, ooh, this is where a lot of the whiteness and the wealth hoarding and all of that is happening. It's like, I'm going to school with kids. And I thought rich was like, oh, if your parents are like a doctor or a lawyer, like you're rich. And I'm like, oh, wait, I'm going to school with the children of billionaires. Like that's a very different level of wealth. And so realizing the way that people that I grew up with and even my own family had struggled, and then seeing that amount of wealth and then seeing that be so casual, it was like, wow, I had been living in a little bit of a bubble. And it was a blessing that my parents were able to shelter me in that way. But I also wasn't able to fully see the ways that my life was being impacted by, just by all of the different systems that we're talking about, patriarchy, sex, like all of these different things. So as I'm going through college, I'm getting more aware. The world around me is changing. Black Lives Matter movement, Occupy Wall Street. And like, that's happening as I'm growing as a college student, and it's really shaping my work. So I would say that was like my introduction. But then after the fact, I think there was parts of me that looked back on my education, that I have an aunt who made sure that we celebrated Kwanzaa every year, that we would go to family reunions and the elders were storytelling and making sure that we knew our history. We were watching Roots every year. Like there were definitely elements where I saw my family making sure that we knew we were Black, and that there was an experience that came with that and a responsibility that came with that. But it didn't feel as overt as like when I see like Gen Z out there organizing. Like I didn't get on social media till I was in college. I wasn't in middle school on social media and watching these things happen. So I do think there's a different experience there, but definitely all of it shaped my desire to get into the work.
Nice. And growing up, you have siblings as well, right? Were they also involved in advocacy awareness, or is it just you and the family who is more politically in tune than the others?
No, my I have 3 younger siblings. My sister Brooke is a communications manager at Black Mamas Matter, a reproductive justice organization. My sister Blair is a first-year law student wanting to dive into this work. And I have, even beyond my siblings, I have a younger brother who's just out of high school, but I have other cousins who are in this work. So I wouldn't say that I'm the only one who's active, but I do think that I helped activate my family, where like, I think that, every Black person is political to an extent, but I think there's a difference between like, like we vote for the big elections and like, we care about race, to being like, oh, like there is race beyond Black and white. There are Indigenous people, there are Latinx people, there are Asian and Pacific Islander people, like that expansion of it, the understanding of like, listen, a lot of these Democrats that we've been kind of safely voting for are not doing what they're supposed to do. Like, I think I was part of the catalyst there, but I think other people have ran with it in their own ways, whether, you know, for me, it's the criminal justice system, and that's always been what I've worked on. But yeah, my sister, it's like, you know, reproductive health and more gender. So there's a few people in the family doing that work.
Wonderful. So let's hear about what you're doing right now. What sort of things are you doing right now for?
So right now I'm writing. I'm taking the leap. For those who have followed me for a while, you have seen me writing articles for various different publications, Elle, Harvard Bazaar, Parade, Refinery 29. So I'm continuing that work, but also working on some longer form projects that I cannot fully share right now. But I'm really, really excited about, and definitely y'all should stay tuned and continue to follow me for more updates about that.
Awesome. That's incredible. So I talked with you a little bit backstage about what can we do? Like, what are the 3 main areas that you think we need to focus as a people? Because, I mean, as I was telling you before, like America right now needs a little help. And we have come a long way in some areas, but in many others, we still have a lot of work to do. And I feel like if we break it to maybe 3 areas, maybe 3, and focus in, because I think right now our focus is everywhere. And I feel like if we get to like the nucleus of what it is we need to do as a people and rally around that, then we can start the work to break down some of these barriers that has been up for decades. So what do you think we should do?
Well, I completely hear what you're saying. And I definitely think there's this desire in everyone that's sort of like, if we focus all of our attention in this one space, we will have a more pointed impact. And I think some of the challenge of that we've seen, even from the civil rights movement, where they really did do that. And they were like, we're going to focus on segregation. And then we desegregated and people realized like, okay, well, that hasn't changed.
Uh-oh. We might have a little technical difficulties. Hang on. Hang on, guys. Yes, we can.
Okay, I may have to keep my video off at the beginning just while I figure out my Wi-Fi. I don't know what is going on, but so that you can hear me, and then I will try and get this fixed by the time that we get into beauty.
Okay, so no problem. So you were saying about segregation?
Yeah, I think the civil rights movement really tried to, you know, like, let's focus in on legal segregation and legal racism and see where that gets us. And then what we saw was that, all right, while they were telling us, we'll let you sit at the lunch counters and we'll let you go to these schools, we're also going to lock y'all up in large numbers. And we weren't really able to see that because all of our attention was there. And so I think I think you want to do a little bit of both. You definitely want to have a focus and prioritize and say, all right, first we're going to do this cocktail of things. And then we're going to add in these elements. But we don't want to put all of our eggs in one basket, because then we find ourselves realizing that we made a lot of change in one area and there's still all of these other fires that are not being put out. So when I think of it as a marathon where we have a few different things happening at the same time. And the reality is, for me, I know, like, if I'm focusing in on the criminal justice system, I need to become an expert on this. I need to put my full attention and like really be zoned in on what I'm trying to fix about our policing and our prisons systems. But I need somebody over there talking about reproductive justice. I need someone talking about maternal mortality and talking about what Black mothers are experiencing when they go into hospitals. And if that can't be me, I need to support them, whether that's with my money. If they're asking me to sign a petition, I'm going to do that. And I know that I can't be on that front lines, but I'm on this front lines. So in that way, I feel like there are multiple front lines at the same time. And
Right.
I have to support the people who are doing the work that I know I don't have the time to do, but that I know
Mhm.
is still valuable. Because if everybody was only focusing on police and prisons, we would have a lot more Black women dying in hospitals. We would have a lot more people, like a lot more cities like Flint and Newark that are not
Yeah.
getting the attention to environmental justice. And like that might not be my area. Like I'm not, a public health expert on how we get lead out of waters, but I know I need somebody working on that because
Exactly.
there is no racial justice if somebody's not fixing that for those Black people. So I think I'm okay with us doing like juggling, to be honest. And I think we can
Mhm.
get, in the same way we'd be like, get you a girl that could do both. Like I think we
Yeah.
can get a movement that can do a lot of different things at once and trust that like just because you're doing work that's not what I'm doing, I'm not gonna judge you and say, oh, why are you not talking about police and prisons? I trust that
Mhm.
you know that this work is valuable too. You're supporting it in those ways, but you're
Mhm.
also focusing on another area that I might not have even been thinking of. Even
Right.
me with beauty, like you talk about me being on the front lines, but we also talk about, representation in beauty and media
Mhm.
and standards and like
Absolutely.
Black girls growing up and not seeing themselves as attractive and not finding ways to like situate themselves like socially where they feel
Mhm.
confident and where they have self-assurance. Like that is its own front lines. And if we were
Right.
talking about police and no one's thinking about that, we have, think of all of the different ramifications that would have.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I know we're slowly knocking the doors down with that. And I think that being that beauty is my area, my sector, I find that right now it's a great time to be a brown girl in beauty because the light is now focused on us and they now see that we have the buying power to move product and to get the things that we want just as our white counterparts have gotten for decades. And I think that as more people start to see that, there'll be more companies who have for the longest time focused on more mainstream and general market, quote unquote. Now they're starting to see that Black dollar is a valuable target to reach and to talk to. So now they're starting to move a little bit more in our direction. Not as fast and not as much as our counterparts, but
Right,
at least
right.
we're getting there. So
Yeah,
I do
100%.
hear you with, we've got to kind of crawl before we can walk, but I feel like we've got so much that we need to do because what this past administration has taught me is that there are still microcosms in our United States of America that still feel like they're in the 30s and the 20s again, and they have that mindset still, and they were waiting for someone to come to give them permission to now let that out, if you get what I'm saying. I feel like it's
Absolutely,
always been
yeah.
underneath the surface, but it's now bubbled to the forefront. And so, me having a Black male child, I feel like, I've got to constantly check in to say, hey, are you okay? Is everything okay? Are you doing okay? How are you feeling right now? Because I worry. I worry that there's going to be a phone call. And, my son is not, he's not a big guy, but, he's Black. So it doesn't matter how tall or how big you are. When you're African American and you're male, it seems you have a target. So I constantly check in even more than I did before because of what's going on in our world today. Hey, Terry, good afternoon to you as
Yeah,
well.
a
Thank you so
million
much for the
percent.
donation. And guys, feel free to chime in with any questions or comments as we go along. We'll be happy to
Yeah.
address them. But yeah, what would you say to, like my generation in terms of how we can help you? Because I feel like we all need to have a stake in this. If we're going to get anywhere, we all need to join hands and break down these barriers.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think one thing that is so slept on is just realizing that we can all be activists or activate change in every single space that we're in. And so I think that there's, because especially generations who really grew up in the shadows of like a Dr. King, a Malcolm X, a Black Panther, where there were like these charismatic leaders. I think people got conditioned into believing like, I have to wait for there to be someone who rises up and just knows everything and has all the answers, and you know what I mean? And because of that, there is either like a lull, like if people haven't found out who that person is, people are like, oh, well, there's no leadership, or that people feel like the only way they can make change is in some big, huge way, like a March on Washington type of thing, as opposed to realizing that, like, for example, there are people who maybe don't have a lot of discretionary income to be donating tens of thousands of dollars of their own money, but they work at a job where they run budgets. And even if it's as small as I'm in charge of the budget that we spend on employee lunches or employee outings, and you're not intentionally thinking about how I can be using Black-owned businesses and women-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses, like that is a huge thing that you can do to shift how money rotates in a community and making sure that it gets to other spaces. Like, I think there are a lot of ways, whether you're in charge of hiring, whether you're an educator and you're thinking like, how can I actually talk to young people? I mentor. If you're a coach, there are a lot of ways that people can make an impact. And I think one thing I don't like about the current generation is the influencer mindset, because sometimes we think that like you have to have a large following to have an influence. And I think people with large followings not be able to get anything done, especially in politics. People with large followings can talk a lot. And that's why I get very self-aware, because I want to hold myself accountable and make sure, like, I hope I'm not just talking. And I'm actually saying, like, am I changing anybody's life? Am I putting money in somebody's pocket that really needed that? Like, into the hands of an organization that really could have used that? Am I collaborating? Do I, run a space that I could be saying like, listen, we don't use this space after hours. There's a local group of young people who are trying to make change. I'm going to make sure that they know they can have their meetings here so that they can have a safe space to come together. Like that used to happen during the civil rights movement. Churches were opening their doors and making sure that like there was community for that to happen. And that's something I don't always see happening. And so we talked earlier about the marathon. And I think that remembering that you can pass the baton and pick it back up. And even if you're saying, well, I haven't been active in a while, there are so many ways to support those who have been or to get back there.
Exactly. I want to just read what Terry said. Size means nothing. White racism is a permanent fixture of America. The question is always, what do we aim to do about it? There are solutions. So yeah, what can we do about it? What do we start doing? We start mobilizing. We start getting into every area that we can and make a change. Start making change. Start talking to the people that we elect. And we talked about this before on this channel. It's not just about the president of the United States. Yes, that's one election, but there are several others. They're your councilmen. They're your senators. They're the people that you vote for the House of Representatives. Right now, Democrats control the Senate as well as the House. And we have a sitting president who is a Democrat. Now we need to start getting things in gear, because now they've been talking about, if I get elected, what they're going to do. So now you shine the light and say, you are now elected. What are you doing? What are you doing to change this? What are you doing to change things in my area? And hold their feet to fire. They want your vote. They got your vote. Now, what are you going to do about it? And it's not about, it's not about, kowtowing to them, because let's be clear, our white counterparts are getting things done that they want. They want that neighborhood pothole fixed. That pothole will be fixed. They want things to shut down in their neighborhood at 10, 11 o'clock at night because their children need to go to sleep. Guess what? It gets done. So we have it in us to have that same power. We don't tap into it enough. Some people do, and I applaud those who do, but not enough that we can have systemic change in this area. And that's why I brought Brea on today, because this is her generation's charge, and it's not their charge alone. We still have to support them. We still have to help them. You know, we talk a lot about this generation kind of being lazy and complacent, but there are people like Brea and many others who are trying to do what is right for us.
I so appreciate you. Oh my gosh, you were so sweet and kind, and I'm so grateful. Because sometimes I still feel so young in it. I mean, I've been doing it since, I really would say I've been active since 2012. So now going on a decade almost.
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh. Hang on, guys. She's going to come back.
Was I breaking up?
Yeah, you paused again.
I don't know what is going on. My internet is trying to block the blessings of this conversation.
I know. Savage Moses Gaming, hello.
Oh, I'm so glad that there's such a great group coming together. But yeah, I was just saying that I'm really grateful to you for cultivating this conversation, because you have such a wealth too. And I recognize that I'm seeing my slice of, you know, this world. But there was more that happened before I got here. And even though I've been doing it for about a decade now, like there's still so much I'm going to learn. So I'm just grateful.
Right. Absolutely. No, I mean, we talked a little bit about, you know, you being the kind of nucleus in your family to get everybody else motivated politically. And from my background, my grandmother on my father's side, when she came to this country from Panama, she wanted to make sure that she wasn't just a fixture here, that she wanted to be a part of the change that she wanted to see. So she was very active in many political parties. She ran a lot of local campaigns as well as regional and national campaigns. And she was on the campaign forefront for Shirley Chisholm when she was running. So I have a lot of that in my background as well. And I think, you know, that kind of steered me towards community service and really giving back to my community. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. So it's very important to me to be able to give back to the town that was my birth. So I'm constantly, you know, thinking of ways to try to give back to New York and to Brooklyn, because, you know, even though I live in another town, another state, I still know where I came from. And I want to make sure that they're okay.
Yeah. I totally do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hi, my truth, your truth. Hello. Welcome in. Welcome in. DOD, welcome in. I forgot to say hello to you, sir. Thank you so much for coming. Guys, thank you so much for coming. I apologize for the delay, but do, you know, have some questions. If you want to ask some questions, please do. Please put them in the chat. We're just having, you know, a conversation, but feel free to jump in and, you know, have a conversation with us. I know that, you know, in a few years, we're going to be looking at the 250th anniversary of this country. And so America has changed a lot in 250, will change a lot in 250 years. It's changed a lot now. But what do you hope to see in America? What does America 2026 look like to you in your ideal
This is
world?
Such a question. Yeah. I'm going to turn off the video. I keep trying to bring it back, but I hope that America is honest. And I say that because I think that in the past, this country has been a part of some of the worst human rights atrocities to happen in, on any continent across history. And our I guess our knee-jerk reaction has been to deny that or to brush that under the rug, as opposed to being honest and just saying, like, listen, this country is founded on some really messed up things. We have not been really transparent. We have not said sorry. We have not done what needed to be, we have not said and done what needed to be done, and really embark on a reconciliation process. Because it's like, thinking of any family drama that you might get into where people are holding a grudge, and you realize it's because people are just waiting to hear sorry. And I think that sometimes it can sound so oversimplified, but like this never apologized to the people that it has harmed. And as a result, we are walking around with a lot of pain that even if you gave every Black person, every Asian American person, every Latinx person, every Arab person, like if you gave every Indigenous person a certain amount of money to say, this is what we're going to undo, that there would still be some trauma that people are dealing with. Like money would not fix all of the problems that we are facing. And there needs to be a real undertaking of that. So I hope by 250, we are saying that we don't want to go into the next phase of this country still in that mindset of trying to conquer people and get them to be quiet about their pain, but rather let's be honest and then go in with the actual clean slate, so that people can embark on a new American dream that has all of us a part of it, as opposed to trying to like fit people into a dream that was never even built for us.
Right. Oh, that's well said. Well said, Brea.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love that. I love that. So that brings me to an interesting point. So there's been a lot of talk about reparations and what reparations would look like. And I love the fact that you said they haven't said sorry yet.
Yeah.
That to me struck a chord because, when you hurt someone, you say you're sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this country, like it or not, was built on the backs of people that look like you and me.
Yeah.
And our forefathers paid a terrible price for that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would like a heartfelt apology. But who would get that? Who would give that?
The president does that on behalf of an administration. Obama was the first president to say from a formal footing, standpoint, and give an apology to Japanese Americans for internment. But he used that opportunity to do so. And we've seen that happen before, whether it's like the US government has apologized to, victims of lynchings and segregation. Like it has happened in some small instances, but we haven't seen this overarching standpoint. Take, for example, even museums are an example of that. Like apologies don't need to be like, okay, everyone gets a personal letter in the mail that says sorry from Joe Biden. But the only museum that exists in this country to honor and pay reverence to the sacrifice that Black people paid during slavery was a private juncture that Brian Stevenson and the Equal Justice Initiative had to put together. The US government did not put something together. There are museums for other like traumatic things that have happened across history, though. There is a museum in DC for the Holocaust, but we don't have a national memorial or monument or museum that says, let's unpack what this country did to Black Americans across history. And there have been a few pop-ups that have gotten close, but we haven't gotten there. Even I had the honor of going to Minneapolis last year after George Floyd was killed. And there were arts installations put together. There was a it was like a mock cemetery that was put together with the name, like
Mm.
tombstones that had the names of people who were killed by police. So it
Mhm.
wasn't even just George Floyd. It was also Eric Garner and Philando Castile and so many other people. And so it was just the first time that I realized, like, wow, this is a place that I could go and actually like mourn and have emotion about this thing that we've been holding in. But
Right.
there's no permanent version of that, and we deserve that. You know, that's an example, I think, of what an apology could look like.
Mm, I like that. DOD said that will never happen. Why do you think that will never happen, DOD?
Yeah, I would love to hear their perspective.
Yeah, I would love to hear that as well. Thank you, Candidate B. Hey, honey. Thank you for coming. So we're talking with Brea Baker. She is a activist. She is a member of my sorority, but more importantly, she is one of many who are on the front lines, who are working hard to make things better for the generations after us to come. So we've been talking about, what America may look like in the next few years. And we've got high hurdles to cross, but I think together we can start making those
Yeah.
inroads to kind of, get some things started and get some things moving in the world, because I think we all realize at the end of the day, we cannot continue the way we are continuing. That absolutely cannot happen. And we absolutely cannot go back to a administration like we had previously. We absolutely cannot go there. So I think we now know
Yep.
far left what we need to do and far right what we need to do.
Right.
And we need to land somewhere in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel about what's going on in terms of, the COVID and, getting the vaccine? Because I've been hearing a lot of young people kind of quote like, I don't trust the vaccine. I think they rushed too quickly to get it. I think this, screams of the Henrietta Lacks story. And, I think they're trying to push us to get it. What are your feelings about it?
Well, okay, I have quite a few thoughts. First and foremost, I don't blame any Black people who have suspicions, because the reality is that like this country has proven many conspiracy theories right in the past. And
Yes.
so I don't think it's ever fair for people to be like, oh, those Black people over there are so crazy. Why are they anti-vaxxers? We are not the same as these white people who are refusing to wear masks in Walmart. Like we are complying with social distance at the majority level. We are wearing masks. We are just saying that like this is a system, like many systems in this country, because everything was built on anti-Blackness, that does not have our best interest at heart, and we are distrustful.
Yes.
But here are some things that I have to say. First and foremost, I think it's important that if we're going to bring up history, that we know the comparisons we've made. So I've heard the Henrietta Lacks comparison. I've also heard people bring up the Tuskegee experiment.
Yes.
Both of those things. With the Henrietta Lacks, they took her DNA and did experimentation with it that came up with scientific discoveries. They never harmed her bodily, but they never compensated her for the way that they used her DNA. So I think that's important for us to know, which is like that was an issue with exploitation, because they made $1 million discoveries, and she has been at the foundation of all of this work. And she had, up until a certain point, only Black people were crediting her, and she hadn't been compensated. So that's not an example of somebody being wrongfully targeted by the medical care system, as opposed to like they were torturing her or something like that.
Right.
And then with the Tuskegee experiment, similarly, it was that people had syphilis, and it wasn't that they were injecting them with syphilis. They were refusing them care. They were refusing them cures that they knew that they had. So they were not telling people, we know that you have syphilis and this is what you should do to treat that. But they were withholding treatment and allowing people to get sicker so that they could monitor that. And I think that is also tragic and something for us to be talking about. But that is very different from them injecting people with something that was not what they said that it was. And so what I have found is that there several Black women who are at the helm of the COVID vaccine research and rollout
Mm-hmm.
work. And
Yes.
so even when I have been really distrustful, because trust me, at the start of this pandemic, I was like, I don't trust Big Pharma. I still don't trust Big Pharma.
Yes.
I was like, I'm not getting no vaccine for another 5 years. And then it got to a point where I realized, like, wow, 500,000 people have died. Am I really willing to ignore what Black women who have went to school and done the work to be able for me to say, I trust you and I'm willing to hear you that this is what needs to be done to ensure that other people don't die. Like, I want to see my grandparents without worrying about harming and killing them. I want to get married at the end of this year without that being a super spreader. And I'm willing to do this and trust the Black women who have been at the helm. Now, that does not mean that I'm going to force other people. I believe that people who try to force other people to get vaccinated, I think that's a bad thing. I think we should never be forcing anyone, because we should all have bodily autonomy and choice. And I believe in that in every single way. But I also believe that people, whether that's private and public, have the right to say, okay, well, I want to be around people who are taking precautions. And if you're telling me that you don't believe in the vaccine and you're not going to mask, then we're not hanging out. But I respect your decision to say that that's what you want to do. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not forcing anyone to do something they don't want to do. But at the same time, I am not going to continue to fearmonger in a way that keeps my community that has been dying at disproportionate rates, because I know people and families that have been devastated by COVID, and I'm not going to ignore that and think that this is a conspiracy. Like, I know people are dying. So.
Absolutely. DOD says some were injected with syphilis, and I'll never take their vaccination.
And that is your right. And that is your right. But you know, I'm trusting the Black women who are at the helm of it. And I encourage everyone to do their own research and see what feels comfortable for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I mean, at the same time, stay safe.
Yeah. Stay safe, and even if you're not vaccinated, you can still wear a mask. Like, that's that's one thing where I do get like, okay, well, you can say, I don't want you injecting me with something. And that is absolutely your right. But people have been wearing masks long before COVID. I mean, doctors wear masks for 18-hour surgeries. Workers wear masks. Like, I have seen conspiracy theories about, like, oh, they want us to wear masks so they can slowly poison us. You are not going to carbon monoxide poison yourself by wearing a mask.
Exactly.
If you don't get an injection or a vaccine or anything of that sort, you can absolutely still wear a mask. You can absolutely still keep your distance. Those are two things I plan to do long after COVID is gone.
Absolutely. Okay? Absolutely. I think, this has taught us that we can do things differently. Like, I was just talking to someone earlier today when I had a meeting, and they were like, you know what? I may never open the brick and mortar office again. I may just continue to have everybody work remotely.
Yeah.
I was like, I get more done working from home than if I had to get up, get dressed, put these doggone magnetic lashes on that are still coming off. Guys, I'm telling y'all, I don't know.
Oh, and I heard you
magnetic lashes.
I wanted the magnetic lashes too. I'm so
I don't know. I'm trying it out, sis. I'll let you know by the end of the week. I'm trying different ones every day, and I'm vlogging. So I will definitely let you know at the end of the week which ones made the cut.
Okay, please do. Please do.
I take the hit so y'all don't have to.
And we appreciate you. Thank you.
But this actually gives me an opening to kind of dispel some other myths and urban legends that I've heard out there. In terms of the 19th Amendment, in terms of Roe versus Wade, in terms of women's reproductive rights, where do we stand on those issues, and what do we still need to do?
Well, okay, so what do you mean by naming those? Because, like, so 19th Amendment versus Roe v. Wade, like.
So in terms, I'll take Roe v. Wade first. So in terms of education, we had, abolished segregation, and now, we have the same rights as our white counterparts to go to whatever school we like. However, there are some that still choose to go to an HBCU. Do you think, I'll flip it a different way. Do you think that now we still need an HBCU? One. And then the second part of that is, if we do we keep it historically Black, or do we still allow people of other races to join us? Because with that, then they're also joining our clubs. So we have members of our sorority who are white, who are Asian, who are Latino. So do we now open it up for everyone?
Right. Well, so I think Roe v. Wade has nothing to do with the answer I'm going to give you to this question. I think HBCUs are absolutely.
Yeah, I think we flipped it to.
Yeah. Because I'm like, I definitely think that HBCUs are still necessary. And I absolutely think that we should have things to ourselves. I think when it comes to our sororities and our clubs and D9, with the exception of Latinx, because there are Black Latinx people. And as you mentioned, you're Panamanian, so we know that. But I absolutely, I do get frustrated because I think that people who are, quote, who are not Black, who consider themselves, quote unquote, woke and conscious, should really recognize that Black people deserve and need spaces where we can just be with one another, where we can just celebrate one another, where we can have a cultural preservation that is really rooted around ourselves and where we're centering ourselves. And I think that in the same way that if I'm an ally to the Asian American community, sometimes I realize that like they need spaces that are just for them to be able to talk about their experience. I want people to see that for us too. Now, I don't think that means that white people and non-Black people can't go to HBCUs, because historically Black just means that when we didn't have anywhere else to go, those were the schools.
You went there, right?
So what that means now, though, is majority Black. And I think there should absolutely be majority Black schools, and not necessarily because we don't have anywhere else we could go, but because we realize that there is value in being taught by people who see you as a full human, who are wanting to tell you your full history and want to teach you in a way that affirms your full political experience. When I was at Yale, I think people were like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing for a Black girl to get this education. But I also often felt like I was teaching my peers and my professors because they didn't really understand what it meant to create an affirming environment for a Black girl. So I do think there was some elements of my education where I felt like, dang, my two sisters who went to Howard and Hampton, they didn't have to do this sort of explaining and justifying why they were in the spaces they were in. And what would it have been like if I had 4 years of just being able to be myself and not feeling on guard? So I absolutely think HBCUs are so relevant. I also think, though, that when we talk about that, we also have to talk about options, because I went to Yale because I got a full ride and I didn't have to pay a dime to Yale over the course of my 4 years. And I went.
Say it, girl. Say that again for the people in the back.
So it's important when people understand that it's not that, people who go to PWIs are selling out, but that like these predominantly white institutions are that way for a reason, and they have money for a reason. Exactly. And they have been able to build up wealth that allows them to recruit talent like myself. And so when we become successful, like I can't wait to get a good piece of money and be able to give that to HBCUs and to be able to support Black institutions so that they can give better scholarships to Black students, so that they can have, really great programs and materials. Because again, just because the school is a historically Black college does not mean that it is as hard, that it has always been historically Black led. A lot of historically Black colleges are white founded, just like the predominantly white ones. And a lot of them, for a very long time, Black people were only allowed to attend but not teach there. So we still have things to unpack there, and there's still work to be done.
Absolutely. DOD said, yes, we need HBCUs, exclude the other races. Okay. Jada said, I just wanted to chime in, still watching from the TV, though I feel HBCUs still hold value because, as odd as it sounds, some Black people ain't never really been around Black people. True, true, true. There are some. She also says, I do feel other races should be excluded, mostly because some come into our various programs getting scholarships and expecting an easy ride through college. Well, I mean, look, you're speaking with a example of the opposite. So she went to a predominantly white school, but she got a full ride for that school. So we can't exclude it for us, but include it for them. So if we're going to be fair,
there's a difference in
across the
some
board,
ways,
I
though.
think.
I think there's a difference in some ways, though, because the thing is that Yale was founded literally because of slave money. Like, when they were looking to found the college, they were like, well, we need some money if we're going to build a college. They sold several Black people and used that money to found the university. So in that way, I feel like Yale putting someone like me through schools is a form of reparations because I'm a descendant of slavery. And even if I am not a descendant of those specific people who were sold, like that school, this school has been around longer than the country. So you just mentioned 250 years of this country. Yale is older than 250 years old right now. So Yale has been around and has been a part of all of the white supremacy that's happening. So they need to be giving Black people full rides and paying for people versus I don't think that Black people owe white, like Black schools don't owe white students in that same way. So I do understand where that person is coming from in that way. Like, you know, if a white person gets a full ride from a HBCU, is that a Black student that didn't get to get that full ride? Like, I think that's important to think of and think of like, even when your goal is, I want to go to an institution that values Black people. And even if I'm not a Black person, I want to have an education where I am surrounded by Black people. I think there's value in that, but taking resources and taking space away from the people who this school was built for and built to create community within, I think can be challenging. So I'm still working on it myself. Like I'm trying to be open-minded and recognize that like some of the reasons that our institutions were founded, those same problems don't exist in the same way, where it was like we were building these clubs because there weren't other options for us. And now that we have options, we can still have these institutions and these clubs and these organizations. But yeah, is it always bad for non-Black people to be in them? Sometimes I think it is. Other times I'm like, you know what? I want to be open-minded. I've met white sorors and had and, you know, been like, okay, you know what? I see you have the appreciation. I see you advocating. Like you're not just in the sorority doing the, you know, strolls. Like you're at the protests, you're donating, you're putting your money where your mouth is. And I respect that. And I'm still like, but Black women deserve spaces where we can just be together too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jada says, now what I don't think is needed is all Black dorms on white campuses. They don't need an all Black dorm to feel they fit in somewhere. That's going to cripple their mindset. What do you think about that?
I mean, Yale doesn't have that. So I can't really speak to whether that is a thing. If that happens on other campuses, I'd be curious what that feels like. I think what my experience was at Yale was that I really craved Black spaces. So I was like, I want to join AKA as soon as I can. But even before then, Yale has an African American Cultural Center. And I was there all the time. Like that was basically the cornerstone of my social experience, because I wanted to make sure that I didn't lose my connection to Blackness while being at that university. So I don't think that it's crippling in that way. I think in that it can be like a balm, and it can be really like supportive for people to realize that like even in this very white space, we can find chances to be with one another. I think that's important. I didn't feel like it's crippling, but I also never lived in all Black housing. That didn't exist at Yale. It was always randomized. And you could choose who your roommates were, but in the larger residential college where we lived, we were, you know, very interspersed.
Okay. Jada says, well, yeah, because back then they were not allowing Black high education without a white lead. That was the rule of sorts, or they got shut down or burnt down. Okay.
Right. There's good conversations happening in this chat.
Good conversations happening. Hi, Gossie. Welcome in. Welcome in. Candidly B says that's true. Jada. ATA Nation, thanks for coming. Hey, Soar, Eat to Live Strong is in here. Hi, welcome back. Jada says, I can exclude it because most of them wouldn't get the opportunity. Sad to say, but it's something like reparation payment. Going back to what we talked about before with reparations. Yeah. Do you think we should have a dollar amount attached to the reparations?
No, I don't. I think it's so limiting because the reality is you can't put a dollar on the pain that we experience. And I feel like trying to do so is something that people want to do to get it over with, to say that like, okay, the dollar amount is $3 trillion. And once we spend that, Black people have nothing else they can complain about. And I think it's dangerous to even get in the mindset of it, because the reality is we could invest billions and trillions of dollars into this and there still be residual effects of racism that we need dealing with. And if people are running off of the excuse of like, well, dang, what more do you want from us? We already did this. You know, it's not in the right spirit. I grew up in the church and we used to say that God wants you to give with a benevolent heart, and he doesn't want you to just pay your tithes and pay your offering like, oh, here you go, God. Like, you're supposed to give like, this is something I am happy to contribute in this way, because I realize that like it's a fraction of what you have given to me. And in the same breath, I think that there needs to be a dollar amount commitment to make it real. You know, we can't just be like, oh, we want to repair harm. But, you know, there needs to be some commitments, but it needs to be with the understanding that like, there's going to need to be several things done. Like, part of that work will need to be, you know, individual cash payments. I do believe will need to be the case. And individual, whether that's land or whether that's a check or what we've been doing, like stimulus checks, you know, like I think there is going to need to be some form of direct support in that way. But I also think our schools need a reinvestment. I think more Black kids need scholarships. Something Senator Cory Booker has been talking about, along with other people, are baby bonds, that Black children, when they're born, get a bond that grows with them. So by the time they turn 18, they have an investment already and they have something that has grown wealth. Like, I think things like that are really innovative and something I want to see happening. But I don't want it to, you know, be presented as if like, all right, let's do this one thing and then, you know, sort of like be done with this and let Black people, kind of what happened, you know, after Obama was elected. Like, okay, great. This is post-racial America. Like, dang, y'all got a Black president. What more do you want? You got Oprah, rich. Like, what more do you want? And it's like, okay, one wealthy Black person or a few powerful Black people or one good policy is not proof that racism doesn't exist anymore. So I want reparations to be really, you know, a full view in that way.
Okay. DOD said all white colleges were built behind slavery. Well, the White House itself was built behind slavery. So definitely, you know, the schools were as well. Jada says, right, we don't owe white nor Asian people a scholarship just because they couldn't get one at their own schools. If they went out and actually competed, then they would get that easy full ride.
Well, I just want to push back against this for a few reasons. One, the idea that people only apply to HBCUs because they think they're an easy ride, like, we have to stop regurgitating that. HBCUs are not all easy to get into. Howard is a very elite university. Hampton is a very elite. Spelman, Morehouse. White people and Asian people are not applying and getting in like it's nothing. Like, these are schools that require you to have a certain background. So I see the spirit that you're saying, which is like, we need to protect our spaces, but let's not continue repeating the myth that Black schools are schools that people go to as their final options. I saw people who went to Howard who turned down Ivy League schools because they wanted certain experience. And so we need to realize that sometimes people are applying to our schools because they see the value that we see in them, because they see the value in being able to learn from Black leaders who have been some of the foremost thinkers, especially when it comes to civil rights and human rights conversations. Like, people want to go to Howard for political science and then go to Howard Law, not necessarily because they want an easy full ride, but because there's power in that. And I see what you're saying. You feel that they believe that that's an easy ride, but again, I think that we need to stop projecting that, because I know people, and that's not the case. People are applying because they see that these schools are valuable. And I think our schools are worth that. Like, they are competitive. I want people to see them as a place that they should be applying to, and not just like where Black people go when they want an easy college experience, or where, non-Black people go when they want a full ride. It's where it's where people apply, where they, they want to take part in the magic, the mecca that is our schools. And we are having a conversation about how much that is helpful or hurtful to what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Terry posed an interesting question. So why hold membership in the two political parties then?
Who said that? Who said
Terry?
No. I mean, but who said?
I don't know where it came from. We were talking about schools, but
yeah, I don't think that people have to hold membership in the two political parties at all. So I don't disagree with you, Terry. So I don't think anything we said so far just goes against that. I think voting for a party versus holding membership in a party are two different things. And you can vote for something in the same way that you can spend money somewhere and not necessarily be a full supporter of that thing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the mindset that anyone can do the job. If there's a candidate that can do the job, that is qualified, that will benefit the needs of my family and myself, then I would vote for that person.
Right.
But again, it's not just the vote. It's still, after you get the vote, holding their feet to fire and making sure that they do the things that they promised that they're going to do. And I know right now Biden was saying that he had made a promise that he was going to eliminate student debt. So I want to see where,
yes.
Yeah, I want to see where that goes, because a lot of you guys are coming out of these schools with six digit debt that you have to overcome before you can even get a job. So even if you are getting these, high paying jobs, you still have a student loan that you still need to satisfy before you can even feel like you're breaking even on your job.
And that interest grows so fast, you end up paying back almost double what you borrowed.
Absolutely. As my son says, Sally Mae is that girl that does not want to go away. Like the more you pay her, the more she comes after you. I mean, it's just a fact of life. And I think that helping in that way will help a lot. I think putting systems in place that, if you're a first-time home buyer, I know Obama did this a lot during his administration, but I haven't seen it since, where if you're a first-time home buyer, there are classes you can take, and there are subsidies that you can get a hold of to help with that down payment so you can get your house. Exactly. Those are kind of things that I think that you can't really like quantify and put a number on it, but in terms of like reparations or an apology, like that's where I see us getting some kind of satisfaction, where if we have the same kind of advantages that others have had in this country, that will help in terms of getting us on at least a playing field where we feel like we have a fighting chance. I feel like we don't even have a fighting chance right now to do anything because we're so behind the 8 ball and we're scattered in that, there's so many holes that we need to plug into. If we can get some of that off of us, debt for our children off,
right,
home buying off, more jobs opening up for people of color, more people of color who want to own their own businesses, set them up for success. Like those are the places where you can start to say, I'm sorry, and mean it.
Right. Yep. No, you're so right on the money, because I think that's why I think the reparations conversation has to be so robust, because it's no longer just 40 acres and a mule. Yes,
No.
there needs to be reparations for slavery. And I actually do think that property and land is going to be a big part of that, and should be a big part of that, because we own so little. And especially in this economy where everyone rents everything. I always think, especially during COVID, I was like, oh my gosh, if we hit a Great Depression right now and landlords started evicting people left and right, like where would Black people go?
Right.
What we saw during COVID was that in New York City, when people lost their jobs and they had family elsewhere, they went to their families' homes outside of the city. But Black people, do we have that? Do we have land? So I think that's important. But even beyond that, there's a conversation of redlining and how we were boxed out of being able to buy homes. And what you said is so important, because we need to be able to get back into that game to get a positive net worth where we're not just borrowing things and it's like a car note here and student debt there and a mortgage there, but we own our things outright. We own our businesses, we own land, we have places we can go, we can build those communities and take care of one another. I'll just end with this, but that is something that I did actually get from my family, and I didn't always recognize it growing up as this is something that I have the privilege to really witness. But even when, up north, we were living what felt like a broke life, cars are getting repossessed. And, money is being stretched thin. We knew that my grandparents owned 86 acres of land down south in North Carolina, and that if we really, really, really ever came on hard times, we could set up shop down there. Right. And especially in this digital age where we could also now work from home, it's like I now know that if anything happened, as long as I have a Wi-Fi connection, I have somewhere I can go, because we own something. We have a slice of this place that we can call ours, and that it's enough for my entire family to be able to benefit from. And I think that's so powerful, and more Black people need to make moves towards that. Really investing and finding ways to do that safely, because I know that it can be scary and it can feel like, well, what is what is safe? What is the stock market, and how do I get informed? But I really think investing and getting a slice of something that's going to grow over time is so.
Absolutely. Jada says, no, I don't feel it should be an amount. Why? Because they have consistently been doing things to us for years. And if they can still pay off Indians and the Holocaust and the Asians, they can keep on with us.
Okay, again, this is a misconception that we got to talk about.
Yeah.
America does not pay reparations for the Holocaust, because that is what Germany did. And so Germany does that. Now, I think there can be comparisons made to say, okay, a similar process to what happened to Germany, where there were the Nuremberg trials. People were held accountable as individuals, but also the country was held accountable to a certain economic thing. Like, then we can have a conversation, but like, we can't just say things without having a background, because there's a lot of misinformation that goes around, and we can't be like, oh, well, if they can pay this people, they can pay us. It's like, and Native American people are also not getting reparations. And people talk about reservations, and we don't fully understand that all of this land was theirs. So to take all of their land and give them back a tiny slice and be like, here's your reparations, is a slap in the face.
Absolutely.
So Native American and Indigenous people have not gotten reparations. They also have not gotten a deep acknowledgement of what has been done to them on their own land. But we don't need to compare ourselves to what other people have or haven't gotten to make the case for what we need, because the reality is Black people deserve what we deserve. Period.
Absolutely.
Period. And that's even
Absolutely.
he's talking about Black farmers, and that's so real. Like, a show that I would recommend people watch is Queen Sugar on OWN, and they
Yes.
talk a lot about that, about the Black farmer experience, and it really
Mhm.
made me appreciate the Black elders who, there was the Great Migration, and I don't want to go into a deep history lesson, but like
Mhm.
a lot of people fled the South for very real reasons, which is that there was a lot of violence and a lot of racism in the South, and we thought there was more opportunity up north. But some people stayed, and they kept tending to that land, and they still own it, and it is such a battle to hold onto land in this country. And so
Yeah.
we have to remember that, like, when our grandparents owned that brownstone in Brooklyn, or they have
Mhm.
some land out in Kentucky, like, really keep that in the family, and let
Absolutely.
that build and grow, because we're seeing our communities being gentrified left and right, and we can't continue to blame other generations for what we're not taking accountability for. So that's something that I'm committing to in my generation, and I have friends who I see also doing that, who are investing in real estate in their own
Mhm.
ways, especially after this pandemic. Like, if you were blessed enough to come on the other end of this with a little slice of money, get you a house or
Mhm.
something. There are so many loan programs and grant programs right now, first time owner programs, all of that stuff that we should be taking advantage of, because we know that
Absolutely.
the other communities are.
Absolutely. And we need to, do our due diligence and research, because a lot of times we miss out because we weren't informed. We're not, taking the time to research and look for these things. And so, our other counterparts are, they're researching, they're looking at, what they can do. I remember going to the supermarket one day with my grandmother, and I get up and I'm, getting dressed or whatever. And she's like, come on, let's go get on the bus and go to the supermarket. And so we get to the supermarket, and there are a lot of like Jewish women in the store, and there are a lot of Italian people in the store, and just other white people are in the store. And so I'm looking around and I'm like, I don't see, a whole lot of brown people. So I asked my grandmother, I said, Grandma, why are we in the store and there's no black people? I mean, there's black people that live in this area, clearly, because we do. She says, because they don't shop until the 15th or the first of the month.
Yeah. Wow.
She says, I shop when they shop, meaning these white people, because that's when the good food comes in. That's when the fresh fish come in. That's when the fresh meat come in. And so whatever is left, that's what black people buy, because they're not able to come until the 15th, when they get their Social Security or, welfare checks or whatever they were getting. They weren't able to come until later the month. And so I started thinking about that, and it informs my decisions even to this day. When I go and shop, I try to shop, in the beginning of the week, because towards the end of the week, you're kind of getting all the leftovers. And I try to shop early in the morning versus later, because again, you want to get the fish when it first comes out at the store.
Right.
And so, I think about that and I'm like, wow, like, did I hit my kids enough to that? Did I put that into their heads? Because again, when you start talking about, generational wealth and generational knowledge, that knowledge that she gave me as a young girl, I carried it all the way through to my adulthood, and it informed how I shop, what I buy, how I buy. But did I take the time out to do that for my daughter, for my son? And the answer was no. So I had to go back and be like, okay, so
Yeah.
when you are doing this, move like this. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because this happens. And it's still that fixture today. Like even today, that's when the fresh fish come out Tuesdays. um, and you have to, keep the mindset that, hey, I want to shop when things are fresh, when things are available, when they're not picked over, when it's not leftover stuff
Mm-hmm.
that, everybody else is like free for all to get. I
Right,
want to
right,
go
right.
when it's fresh and when it's, available first, like
Right.
when it's available to
What
me.
should be all right. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you can apply that kind of knowledge to almost everything. When it comes to, picking out fresh fruit, when it comes to, going to the movies, they have the special movies on Tuesdays. You have the $5 Tuesdays when we used to go to the movies. And I'm like, why do they have it on Tuesdays? Well, usually people wait till the weekend to go to the movies. They can go as a family and, just go. But the older people want to go when there's less traffic. So they go on the Mondays or the Tuesdays when there's less traffic into the movie theater. They can go in, they can sit wherever they want to, they can enjoy themselves. So then they started giving them discounts for doing that. So it's like it started off as a senior discount only for seniors. And then they opened it up for everyone because they were like, well, they're not going to come until, the Black people are not going to come to the weekend. So I can open it up and I still won't get that many Black people. Nope, you're going to get me and you're going to get my family because I want that kind of discount too. I want to be able to sit down and enjoy my movie without everybody being around. I want my kids to get, the popcorn or whatever they wanted, half price because it's Tuesday. And I want to get $5 for these tickets.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you start to think about, the things that are available to you and you do the research, you'll find that you can pretty much navigate this system the same way other people have been navigating it for years.
Yeah. Yeah.
DSC said cash payments are just the beginning.
Very true.
Very true. Very true. We got a long way to go. Jay says, I don't want the government in charge of our money when it comes to putting them in communities, schools, etc., because all they got to do is push us out and take it for themselves. But then how are we going to get anything? We've got to. So it goes back to what I was saying in the beginning. If you've hired people to do a job, right? My company hires me to do a job and I don't do that job, guess what? I don't have that job anymore. When you elect someone for office and they don't do what you want them to do, get rid of them. And the same way that we have been mobilizing and putting the strength of our vote behind these people, now that they're in office, you keep putting that mobilization in effect. That is how the others do it. That is how Jewish people do it. That is how Italian people do it. They put their money and they put their efforts to people who will do for them. And they put those people in office and then they sit in that office day in and day out until their stuff gets done.
So true. So true.
I don't believe HBCU is easy to get into. I feel they feel it's an easy ride because they're getting a scholarship they wouldn't otherwise receive.
And I kind of addressed that one already because again, I just feel like I hear what you're saying, but I just disagree that people who are not Black and apply to HBCUs are able to easily get that. Just letting them even create that stereotype. For example, at Yale, wealthy people do apply because they know that they will get preferential legacy treatment, as we saw in some of the college admission scandals that happened at USC and
Right.
Stanford and stuff like that. There was
Mhm.
proof of it that ultimately allowed it to become a rumor where people who weren't fully sure were able to say, like, I'm pretty sure that rich people are buying their way into these schools. And it's like, you know what I
Absolutely.
mean? Like, that is a real thing that's happening. What is not
Absolutely.
real
And
is
don't think it hasn't stopped. Don't think it
right.
hasn't
Exactly.
stopped.
Oh, it's absolutely still going. It's absolutely still going. So yeah, she said, y'all just get into the comment late. I got you. Yeah.
Okay. Mine's Journey. Hello, hello. How are you? Thank you for coming. Guys, don't forget to hit that thumbs up. Yeah, I'm probably behind on the comments because I was like
In
so
it.
enthralled.
Yeah.
Hi, Mr.
Well, we should
100.
get into the beauty though, because I know that you had just gotten off the road and I'm gonna have
Yes.
to soon. So I want to make sure that we can get into that part.
Absolutely. Jada said, I hear that. Hold them to their word. Yeah, absolutely. Candalee V said, absolutely, Bella. We've got to hold them to what they say they're going to do. Absolutely. And that's the only way we're going to get stuff done. Yeah, to be honest, when my nephew told me the debt he had for 2 semesters dealing with Sally Mae, I was like, what in the, yeah, the field you're going into, you'll be accountable until your 50s. Absolutely. Absolutely. There's so much debt that these kids are holding on to when they get out of school. It's like they're choking them. Side note, for people who had Sally Mae 2005 and before, check and see if it was a non-government loan, because most of them were not. And if you hadn't paid it, they will drop off in 7.5 years. Oh, that's good to know. I believe that because it should still pop in paying into college. I told my daughter, if I get the opportunity, I'm paying her win. She's just joking. You gotta get them scholarships. That's right. That's right. Listen, I learned because from the time my son was born, I told him, you're going to Morehouse. You're going to Morehouse. You're going to Morehouse. And when he got old enough to do the research himself, he was like, nah, I ain't going to Morehouse, all guys school. Nah, I like the ladies. I want to be with the ladies. And I was like, the ladies are right across the street. It's called Spelman. To the right of you, you got Clark Atlanta. I was like, so you're going to be, with everybody. So real quick story. He went on my now current chapter, Delta Rho Omega's college tour. And every time he stopped at the college tour, Howard, VCU, you name it, he was like, Ma, send my stuff. I want to go here. I want to go here. I'm like, okay, keep going. Because I knew he was going to Morehouse as well. Mm-hmm. And so every school he called me, every single school he called me, like, I'm going here. Oh my God, you got to see this. You got to see that. I love it. It's off the chain in here. I want to go. When he got to Morehouse, radio silence. He didn't call me all day.
Wow.
Like, oh no, he hates it. Mm-hmm. And then on the way back, the Soros used to always, talk about, the kids who are seniors, have you made a decision? Was your decision made for a particular school? And when they got to him, he stood up and he said, I know, all my aunties on this bus gonna start calling mom, but I made a decision that, I want to go to Morehouse. When I tell you my phone blew up, everybody.
I know it did.
And so when I got to the drop-off point, which was my alma mater, they picked them up and dropped them off in front of LIU. Blackbirds, go Blackbirds. Mm-hmm. So when they dropped him off, I was there and I was screaming, Morehouse. And he just shook his head. He was like, dang, they can't hold water for a minute.
Right. You already knew.
So,
but listen, he got to know that was my mother with my little, my younger sister, Brooke. She had been applying to other schools and my mom was like, God told me to tell you to apply to Howard. I don't know what it is. I think that's where you're going. And Brooke had not been checking for Howard at that point in time. Like, not necessarily because it wasn't it was HBCU. She had been looking at some of the other ones, but like, she was just, she wasn't really feeling Howard. And it ended up being one of the best decisions that she ever made. And she ended up getting a really great scholarship and just really loving it.
Nice. See, that's what it's all about. I wish he had graduated that year that guy said he was going to pay everything.
Listen, I know she was I think she was the year underneath though, and it was so funny. Or maybe she had graduated the year right before, something like that. But Robert F. Smith, when he did that, right?
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh.
Dang!
I was like, I mean, I did get a full ride, so I can't really complain, but also that just feels like that would have been the best feeling.
Exactly. To know that you don't have that weight. And I mean, I'm telling you, I've helped him and I helped my daughter. But I'm just like, what about the ones who can't help?
Yeah.
Who have to be beholden to these loans with like these crazy interest rates and these predator loans and all of this stuff. And I'm so glad that they abolished the credit card companies coming in. I hated that. I'm like, on top of the loans and the debt that they already have, now you want them to apply for a credit card that they're not going to be able to pay back, to get them on that level as well. It's just beyond me. All right, Jada, let me see what you got to say. If she got to pay, put that money towards running your business. Simple, because you ain't going into debt when you could invest that money into yourself. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So how we wrap up our segment is we always ask our guests to dive into their makeup bag and tell me.
Let me try and turn back on this video. See if
what you got in your makeup bag, girl?
Listen, I used to be big into my beauty and I have fallen off. So I don't have too much, but I have a little something. So let me get this camera back on. See if I can make sure it works well. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, Jada. They had him as a student center where I went to school too. Like, I'm not doing that.
No. Okay. So now what I have in my makeup bag, so my mother does sell makeup with Mary Kay. So she has me this cute little pouch. But actually most of my products inside of it.
We always love pink.
Yes, Soror, so some of these are just like, I went through such a Fenty phase. So most of my lip stuff is Fenty.
Nice.
I have a gloss, a red lip.
I have that on now.
Essential. Yes, this one is a classic. Everybody has to have that one. And then this color is Hunter Green.
Ooh. Oh yeah, I like that.
Yeah, nice and deep. So I like this for when I'm going for something bold. And I know some makeup artists also use lipstick sometimes for like eyes. So I kind of use it for that sometimes. Then I have this like ombre lip liner. I love this. I think this one is NYX. No, this one's Absolute New York. And I have another one that's NYX. From Mary Kay, my CC Cream.
Nice. CC Cream is coming back.
CC creams. CC creams are coming back because that one's a throwback. But and then some bronzer. But the rest is just a few brushes, some eyeliners, mascara, like a lip scrub.
What kind of mascara are you using?
I just plucked my eyebrows the other day. So
I got the microblading. Not the microblade. I got the micro shading.
Oh, yes.
So it's more like a powder makeup kind of look.
Yeah.
I like it. I
want to try that.
Week 3.
Okay. I'm gonna have to try
that. She said, I don't know why you were off camera the whole time. I meant to say that 20 minutes ago. You're beautiful. It ain't like you were naked. No, her camera kept freezing, so that's why she was off camera.
Yeah, I'm glad it's not doing it now. I'm knocking on wood and hoping it sticks for this beauty segment.
Yes, you see those beautiful freckles? I love.
And that is why I stopped wearing makeup, because when I was younger, I was really into makeup when I was in like high school. My mom was just letting me play around in it. And I was like, starting to step into like, what does it mean to be like a woman? And I really loved it. But then I got to the age where it was like, the two things that my mother blessed me with were prominent cheekbones and really great skin. And so I didn't want to cover my freckles. And so I stopped wearing like foundation and concealer and things like that. And then I slowly also stopped doing things with my eyeliner because I got deep into activism and I was like, I don't got time. So my on the go thing was like, I wanted to have my lashes done, my eyebrows done. I throw on some eyeliner, always do like a lip. But that was really it. I was very simple. But I'm laughing at DOD being like, this is the part of the show.
This is the part where I get lost.
I love it.
Cream stands for Color Correct, Jada. So it's a light form of foundation. I'm going to be using a lot of light foundation this year for the summer and the spring, because I just find that the older I get, the more I don't really need a heavier coverage. And especially since we're not going anywhere, really, I go in with my sunscreen and I go in with a, CC cream or my concealer. Today, all I have on is concealer. I don't have any makeup on. And a little highlighter. You see that bling? You see that bling? Little highlighter.
Yes. Love it.
And lip gloss. That's it. That's it.
I love a simple thing.
Now I'm still with my stuff, but I find that in my personal, I don't really wear a whole lot. But let me say that my Pat McGrath foundation and concealer brush,
yes, Pat McGrath. I've heard good things about Pat McGrath. Yeah.
Yes. I love all things Auntie Mama Pat. All things Auntie Mama Pat. I'm waiting for her to come in with a stick foundation. I want stick foundation from her and I want blush from her. I'm ready. If she gives me those two things, I'm set. I love it. My $2 ones ain't. I was missing out. Thank God y'all saved me. Yes, I'm telling you, Auntie Pat will save your life in a clinch. Well, I want to say thank you so much to our guest today, Miss Brea Baker. You have been such a pleasure to have on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I loved our conversation. You have to send me your address, so I have a little something for you, a little brown girl Bella, something for you.
Oh yes, because I just said I need to get my makeup right. I need to get my brown girl Bella.
Yes, you need to get Bella, baby.
Yeah, step me up.
Absolutely. So I will definitely hook you up for that. But all of you in the chat, you already know you have been Bellafied. Take care, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Love you guys.